Andrew McAnsh and the Mira-Mar Properties. From the Story of Sarasota by Carl Grismer. McAnsh came here for the first time in the spring of 1922 and went into a huddle with Mayor E.J. Bacon, City Attorney John F. Burkett, council members and officials of the Chamber of Commerce. The upshot of the discussion was that the city agreed that if McAnsh would build a hotel, an apartment building, and an auditorium, it would not levy any taxes on the properties for 10 years and would give free light and water to boot. In my opinion, the story of Andrew McAnsh in primary history books use partial facts to weave a story that is so much less than his grandiose plans and actions documented in the Sarasota newspapers. This and other examples of misleading history, incomplete biographies, and unrevealed facts led me to investigate the early years of Sarasota more carefully by poring through the area's pioneer newspapers. This talk will reveal the facts according to the early newspapers. There are still some missing facts left for future history explorers, but there are enough here to present a more truthful story. Andrew McAnsh was born in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1874. His father was in the textile business. His family moved to Canada in 1880 and then to Chicago in 1886. After school, he worked for a haberdasher firm and then the grocery business with his brother. He tried several trades until he became a builder. He had built apartments in Chicago, Kansas City, Los Angeles, and Wichita, Kansas before coming to Sarasota. Ralph Caples, a Sarasota snowbird, investor and booster, then residing in Chicago, and William B. Towles, a perpetual Sarasota winter visitor from Chicago, convinced Mr. McAnsh to visit and possibly build a much-needed hotel in Sarasota. On September 9th, 1922, Andrew McAnsh, along with his architect William Craig, presented his plans for a $1 million hotel facing the bay, which he named the Tamiami Inn, to the Chamber of Commerce, Board of Governors, and businessmen of Sarasota. McAnsh hired Thomas Martin as the local associate architect. The proposed hotel to be built on the Gulfstream Avenue site next to the Belhaven Inn could be built on the unit system, one segment at a time. The building of the hotel would only go ahead if the people of Sarasota would invest in $100,000 of first mortgage bonds at 7% interest. McAnsh didn't realize how hard that would be. Historically, except for a few individuals, the locals did not have a lot of money to invest. After going back to Chicago, creating the Andrew McAnsh Company, and discussing their next move, McAnsh returned to Sarasota and announced that he would build a large apartment house and store complex on Palm Avenue without any required buy-in or incentives. The first phase would be complete by January 1st, 1923. It will cost more than $500,000 and will cover the entire block between Palm and Guava Avenues from the property of George W. Blackburn and the Ross Cigar Company to William Street, with a handsome court and sunken garden in the center, and a 40-foot areaway entering the court from Palm Avenue. Palm Avenue will be beautified from Main Street to William Street with a white way and 10-foot sidewalks on each side. The telephone and electric light wires will be moved off Palm Avenue and either put underground or in an alley. 18 store buildings will be provided on the ground floor of the Palm Avenue side, with apartments overhead, while the remainder of the building will provide a commodious apartments on both the first and second floors. The building will be constructed of brick, fireproof throughout, following the Spanish and Italian style of architecture. So you see, this block of apartments was meant to be built in 2 phases. From the November 2nd Sarasota Times, on Wednesday of this week, City Clerk Joe Gill issued a $200,000 building permit to the Carmen Company of Tampa, covering the construction of the first unit of the $500,000 apartment house, which Mr. Andrew McAnsh and his associates of Chicago proposed to have completed by January 1st. This is the largest individual building permit ever issued in Sarasota. Since the Mira-Mar Corporation had not been incorporated yet, I assume that the Andrew McAnsh Company financed the build. The building is to be completed with a red tile roof and cream color stucco. Notice the street lights, which had been noted before as the Great White Way. The construction was done in day and night shifts to get it done by January 1st. When Andrew McAnsh came back into Sarasota at the end of November, members of the Chamber of Commerce, the mayor, and leading businessmen met his train before it got to Sarasota and drove him the rest of the way. As the procession went down Main Street, red fuses were lighted on both sides, casting a soft glow over the scene, which lent the effect of a truly gala occasion. At the same time, the fire siren and the signal whistle on the light plant were both turned on to peal forth their welcome to Mr. McAnsh, who is regarded as one of the most important developers ever coming to the city. Many business houses along Main Street displayed banners on this occasion, pledging their faith to Mr. McAnsh, typical ones being, "Flagler built the East Coast, McAnsh will build the West Coast," and "Flagler, West Palm Beach, Fisher, Miami, McAnsh, Sarasota." The procession turned south onto Palm Avenue, past the apartments, and to Afterglow for a celebratory dinner. Ralph Caples, the great Sarasota booster and promoter of the apartment house, met with the city council on December 1st and advised them if they wanted more building from McAnsh or other investors in the city, they needed to do something to incentivize that construction. The city agreed to remit the apartment property taxes for 10 years. Inwood Park is a subdivision that Owen Burns developed circa 1911. This picture of the first addition to Inwood Park was part of an ad in the Sarasota Times dated December 26, 1912. The pink lot in the upper left portion of the screen is Block 1, Lot 10, which the City Council would pay rent on equal to the city taxes on the apartment property as their form of remitting taxes on McAnsh's development. 9th Street is now Fruitville Road, so the intersection closest to this addition is Fruitville Road and Osprey Avenue. The Mira-Mar Apartments and shops were ready by January 1st for occupancy. It was noted that the demand for the shops was greater than the apartments, so McAnsh made sure the shops were finished first. Here are 2 examples of ads, one for available apartments, the other advertising the Mira-Mar Art Shop. Note, the correct spelling of Mira-Mar included the dash, at least at this time. Here is a colorized postcard of the Mira-Mar Apartments and shops. At the northern end of the Mira-Mar Apartments and shops, McAnsh built at the same time an adjacent building that became the DeMarque Hotel and Cafe. Here is a 1924 ad for DeMarque's Mira-Mar Cafe. The Sarasota Times reported on January 4, 1923, that the Tamiami Inn Finance Committee calculated that they had met the $100,000 goal set by Andrew McAnsh. The Tamiami Inn Finance Committee had assumed that if the city bought Payne Terminal from Calvin Payne, that he would invest $50,000 into mortgage bonds for the new Tamiami Inn. Calvin Payne was a rich snowbird from Pennsylvania who had supported Sarasota in several ways. For example, Payne Park. The fishing industry had occupied the downtown bayfront since its inception. Calvin Payne hired Owen Burns to dredge Hoggs Creek and create an inlet where the fishing industry could move to. However, the fishermen weren't anxious to move. A hurricane in October 1921 and a city mandate that they could not rebuild downtown forced the fishing companies to move to Payne's terminal. In February, McAnsh actually buys the site he planned to use for the Tamiami Inn, paying about $25,000, which reflected the high prices during the real estate peak of the mid-20s. The property stretched from the Bellhaven Inn to William Street, now McAnsh Square, and from South Palm Avenue to Gulfstream Avenue. McAnsh also announced that south of the Mira-Mar Apartments at the corner of Palm Avenue and William Street, of a $100,000 Palace Royale or casino to contain a dance floor for 500 couples, a theater capable of providing for first-class road attractions and moving picture shows, and one of the finest concrete bathing pools in the state. Violet ray appliances for bathers and invalids would be provided. The casino will be built and open by the 1st of next November, Mr. McAnsh says, providing the new municipal pier, 700 feet into the bay, is completed according to specifications, and the obligation for an entrance of the Atlantic Coastline Railroad into the city is fulfilled. A kink in the plans. Calvin Payne won't invest in the Tamiami Inn, so the $100,000 requirement will not be met. This changes everything. The city and McAnsh show their tough love. The city offers $30,000 bond issue as a gift if Mr. McAnsh builds a hotel and stipulates how much his proposed investment here, in accordance with his plans already submitted, would amount to, and asking him further to submit to a checking of all materials by a city inspector and cost bills as well. Andrew McAnsh replied, "I don't propose to have anybody question my integrity. The committee asked me to give the total cost of my contemplated investment here. That I will give no one. I have never in all my years of activity and never will on any of my buildings. The architectural plans are before you. They speak for themselves. Assuredly, they would have to pass inspection of the underwriters and the state requirements." Mr. McAnsh declined any proposition with strings to it, such as an inspector to see that he expended $300,000 on the hotel building. He also declined a counter proposition to take on a bookkeeping system and accept $30,000 worth of current light, water, and taxes. McAnsh gave as his terms to proceed at once with the erection of a modern hotel, free electricity, water, and taxes for the next 10 years, in return for which he proposed to give the city of Sarasota a hotel that would bring $500,000 into their coffers annually and give Sarasota more publicity than it ever had before. The city's answer was no. W.H. Warburton, proprietor of the Thousand Island Hotel, one of the big show places at Alexandria Bay, New York, near the Canadian border, had a long conference with Mr. McAnsh relative to the leasing of the property and advertising this resort and the new hotel in 50,000 high-class lithograph booklets Mr. Warburton gets out annually in connection with his Thousand Island house. He also maintains booking and advertising offices in New York and Chicago. His proposition would give Sarasota $100,000 worth of free publicity annually. At this time, Mr. Warburton also commented on how trashy South Palm Avenue was. A few months later, the Sarasota Times reported that the old tin garage, the whitewash fence, and chicken coop are still standing in front of South Florida's most beautiful apartment building. Some advertisement for Sarasota. The April 5th Times reported that the city finally accepted Mr. McAnsh's demands, but now things had changed. No hope for the fancy $1 million hotel, no second phase of apartments. The idea of a casino or palace royal was changing almost daily. The Sarasota Times posted, Mr. McAnsh will construct a modern hotel of 125 to 150 rooms, costing $300,000, and a casino costing about $100,000, with saltwater bathing pool, dancing pavilion, theater, dressing rooms for the bathers, and in addition, a park along the waterfront available to the general public 3 days each week. The hotel had been leased to William H. Warburton, who created publicity booklets. The city decided to rename Guava Avenue to Mira-Mar Court, widen, pave, and put up curbing, and put telephone cables underground. The May 23rd Times reported, the new hotel will be located at the corner of Mira-Mar Court and McAnsh Place, and will be 5 stories in height with an observation tower extending 2 stories above the main building, making a total of 7 stories for the tower, which will give an unobstructed view of Sarasota Bay and all surrounding country. The construction will be of steel, concrete, and metal lumber of the most approved fireproof type, while particular attention will be given to soundproof walls and floors. In point of capacity, it will be the largest hotel in Sarasota, having 150 rooms, each room with either shower or tub baths, and equipped with elevator service and every other known convenience that is incorporated in the most modern hotels today. Instead of a casino at William Street and South Palm Avenue, the plans are for an auditorium at Williams and Mira-Mar Court. Due to all the changes, McAnsh's architects were busy finalizing plans for the Mira-Mar Hotel and Auditorium. Another delay was because of Florida's land boom. It was taking longer to get supplies delivered by train. Mr. Warburton is having made silver service equipment, including monogrammed silverware for the new hotel at a cost of $23,000, with special linen, and is to bring his own staff here in December to prepare for the hotel opening. At the end of June, the Sarasota Times still reported a casino or natatorium to cost about $85,000. On July 5th, McAnsh was reported to start work on the new $75,000 amusement casino. To pay for the Mira-Mar Hotel, McAnsh and partners formed the Mira-Mar Corporation to be effective on July 25, 1923. The notice was published in the July 19th copy of the Sarasota Times. It listed Andrew McAnsh as president, Ralph C. Caples, the Sarasota booster, as vice president, William H. Schmidt, McAnsh's banker, as treasurer, Charles A. Kopke as secretary, John F. Smolsky as a director, William D. Foreman, McAnsh's son-in-law, as a director, and W. B. Towles, the other Sarasota booster, as a director. This shows excavation work that started in July 16th along Mira-Mar Court. This picture is of the courtside construction of the hotel. This portion of the construction is near the Peninsular Telephone Building to the upper right, and the Ross Cigar Factory, which is behind the construction, upper mid picture. The DeMarque building is in the upper left. In this picture of the Mira-Mar Hotel going up, you can see the new Peninsular Telephone Building, upper mid left, and the Methodist Church, upper right. This is more courtside construction with the Methodist Church on Pineapple Avenue, upper mid right. Another picture of construction. Brickwork is being done. Note the use of hollow bricks. This shows work well underway next to the Ross Cigar Factory, undergoing its own facelift. The Mira-Mar Hotel starting to reach its full height, facing Mira-Mar Court. The Mira-Mar Hotel, north wing, facing Mira-Mar Court. This was in October 1923. Here's a courtside view of the work. The just finished Mira-Mar Auditorium. Notice the band shell on the McAnsh Park property, yellow arrow. A few years later, a new band shell will be built just off McAnsh's property. Here's an advertisement for the new Mira-Mar Hotel, listed in January 1924. A picture of the Mira-Mar Apartments with the hotel rising behind them. The official entrance into the hotel was from South Palm Avenue through a gap in the Mira-Mar Apartments. Another picture from McAnsh Park showing the entrance into the hotel. A view of the hotel from the south court between the hotel and apartments. Another colorized postcard view of the south court patio. In 1924, there was a fashion show given on the patio of the South Court. The gentleman with the cane on the right side was Dr. Jack Halton. A view of the finished hotel along Mira-Mar Court. It looks like it's in the late 50s, early 60s. Another view of the finished hotel along Mira-Mar Court. A view of the hotel from the Ross Cigar Factory building. Here's a 1924 picture of the main lobby of the Mira-Mar Hotel. Here's another 1924 picture of the main lobby entrance into the Palm Room. This is a colorized postcard view of the Palm Room. And a colorized postcard view of the Mira-Mar Hotel dining room. Here's advertisements for the grand opening and the grand opening ball of the Mira-Mar Auditorium. Note, Robert Ringling, son of Charles Ringling, baritone, was featured in the opening. This is a colorized postcard view of the front of Mira-Mar Auditorium. A.B. Edwards recalled that its upstairs had offered gambling for snowbirds during the boom years, operated by the Chicago concern of Conrad and Locke, who also ran the Golden Horseshoe. Edwards said the place was off limits to locals. Here's another frontal view of the Mira-Mar Auditorium. The auditorium, which seated 1,200 people, was created for entertainment, large meetings, and dancing. In this picture, the auditorium was set up, I believe, for a Sarasota Garden Club meeting. And here's another view of the same. Mira-Mar Hotel. The times were boom to bust in Florida and the Great Depression after the stock crash of 1929. The Mira-Mar Corporation owned the hotel until Andrew McAnsh's son-in-law, William Foreman, bought the hotel outright in 1938 and operated it until his death in 1949. It was then sold for $115,000, quite a loss from the original $350,000 investment. But at this time, tourists were looking for rooms on the beach, not in town. 8 years later, it was sold again for $250,000 when Charles Levin operated it as a low-income hotel where the occupants volunteered for some of the tasks to run it. Sarasota's Building and Zoning Department in the 1970s condemned the rooms that were not occupied, and as unoccupied rooms were exited, they also became condemned. Melvin Weintraub and Louis Conti bought the hotel for $840,000 in 1982 and tore down the hotel and built a multi-level parking garage. They also converted the Mira-Mar shops and apartments to the Mira-Mar Palm Center office retail complex. The buildings went into foreclosure in 1987 and was bought by Thomas Lewis for $6 million. You remember Joni Mitchell's song, Big Yellow Taxi? They've paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Here are a few photos of the demolition. So it was demolished all the way up to the Mira-Mar Apartments. And it's gone. But the work was just beginning, remodeling the Mira-Mar Palm Center and its multi-story garage. The two buildings on the right of the demolition are the DeMarque Hotel and the Ross Cigar Factory. Also notice the parking lot on the right of these buildings. In the 60s, Sarasota tore down the buildings on the south side of Lower Main Street to increase parking downtown. This is the start of the remodel of the Mira-Mar Palm Center. Today the changes include a tunnel passageway from one set of buildings to the other, elevators instead of inside stairs, and a waterfall feature near where the old entrance into the hotel would have been. The offices are still a little cubbyhole-ish, at least on the second floor. Inside offices where apartments used to be. The Mira-Mar Auditorium which location now hosts a multi-level parking lot, had a more dismal history. Although very popular during the 1920s, the local recession and the country's depression found little use for it, and during the years it was used as a warehouse and as a plumber's supply warehouse before it was bulldozed in 1955. Let's talk about the bands and bandstands. While McAnsh was building the Mira-Mar Apartments, he noticed the local band did not have uniforms, and a cheap way of garnering support was to provide them. His father had been in the textile business, and Andrew had worked for a haberdasher, so that was something he knew. He had measurements taken, had the uniforms made in Chicago, and delivered them a little over a month later. With a brand new apartment store complex, a brilliant white way, new uniforms for the band, it was time for a bandstand. Located across the street near the bayfront, Dr. Jack Halton started a fund drive, and with donations from John Ringling, Ralph Caples, and others, the bandstand was built mid-January of 1923, and the city band gave a concert in their new uniforms for Mr. McAnsh. The bandstand was located on the vacant lot between Gulfstream and South Palm Avenue and just north of William Street, now McAnsh Square. In February, McAnsh bought the land the bandstand was on, thinking there was still a possibility of building the $1 million Tamiami Inn. When that went bust, he turned the land into McAnsh Park, which was open to the public 3 days a week. Other musicians used the bandstand in McAnsh Park. The January 1924 headlines here informed the Sarasota Public how well Kiwanis band, led by conductor Patterson, performed at McAnsh Park. Here's a picture of the Kiwanis band in front of the Mira-Mar complex. The hotel had just been finished. In 1925, John Ringling started talking about bringing two bands he used at the circus to winter in Sarasota, the Czechoslovakian National Band of Prague with 30 musicians and the Merle Evans Band with 25 musicians. He wanted them to play both at St. Armand's, where he was trying to sell real estate, and the McAnsh site. However, the current bandstand was not big enough for the bands. E.O. Burns, chairman of the band committee, raised enough money to build two band shells. The one in front of the Mira-Mar complex was built on the city park between the Bay and Gulfstream Avenue, possibly because the city didn't want to build on McAnsh's property. Here's a map and picture showing where the band shell was built. The road in front of the band shell was Gulfstream. Siesta Key plans. During the time McAnsh was starting his plans for the Mira-Mar Apartments, he and his associates got interested in beach land. In October 1922, they secured an option on 1/2 mile of Gulf frontage at Crescent Beach. They purchased the property in January of the next year with plans for a beach casino. In January 1924, Andrew McAnsh, Ralph Caples, and William Schmidt formed the Mira-Mar Beach Company with the purpose of developing their beach property. The Mira-Mar Beach Company built the Mira-Mar Casino overlooking the Gulf in Sarasota Beach on Siesta Key. The manager was listed as Mario Maffei, previous manager of European hotels and casinos. Beach casinos are usually not gambling casinos. They offer entertainment and changing rooms for the beach. Mira-Mar Beach Subdivision, McAnsh section, on Siesta Key was developed by the Mira-Mar Beach Company. Improvements included paved streets, curbing, and sidewalks, as well as beautification with shrubbery, palm trees, and lampposts for street lighting. $150,000 sales had been reported. On September 18, 1925, it was reported work was scheduled on the building of the first 6 homes in the Sarasota Beach subdivision. All lots in the Mira-Mar Beach subdivision were sold, and an extension was opened to the north called Mira-Mar Beach Extension. It had a Gulf Beach frontage of 1,500 feet. Artesian water will be supplied to each lot, and underground drainage as well as storm sewers will be provided. High-grade sidewalks, curbs, and streets will be put in, with parkways and liberal planting of ornamental trees and shrubs. The parkways and streets will be brilliantly lighted at the expense of the corporation, with light and telephone service provided for each lot. The Gulf front will be bulkheaded and filled along its entire front. This is an advertisement for the Mira-Mar extension listed in the Herald newspaper of December 1925. After this time, the boom turned to bust and very few lots were sold. For the most part, McAnsh and his associates went back to Chicago. Thank you for patiently attending this presentation. Questions?